Subscribe to Cool World, right?
Generation Cool.
God, I'm so wrong. I messed up. Hey guys, Renee from Bargain Hunters Thrift here, and I'm very happy today. I got a special guest. I'm super excited because I'm a fan myself. Robby. But go check out Generation Cool TV. Show him some Bargain Hunter Thrift loves. He's just under 1,000 subscribers. He's just started a channel. Let's bump him over so he can customize the channel more and give him a subscription. I know the Team Bargain Hunters will do the right thing. Also, your store's in the Phoenix area, right? You want to plug that real quick?
Yeah, Tucson, Arizona. We're Generation Cool, 80s and 90s boutique, right on the heart of 4th Avenue in downtown Tucson, Arizona. We've been doing our thing for 7 years. We have a show on Netflix. I've been on Pawn Stars, all that good stuff.
And now he's here at Bargain Hunter Thrift Store. By the way, if you guys like 80s stuff, 90s stuff, you got to go check it out. It's a super fly store. If you haven't seen the show on Netflix, check it out and definitely check out the YouTube channel. Now, a little while ago, guys, we got all this Louis Vuitton stuff and everybody tried to buy it. And we weren't sure what's fake, what's real. Robby is an expert on this stuff, so we're going to go really fast, and we already laid this stuff out. You guys seen the previous video. We're just kind of going to go a speed type of thing, and he's going to tell us if it's fake, if it's real, and what it's worth. Also, we have some vintage NBA gear, and I got a box from the Lamar Odom locker. So you want to just hit it right away?
Oh, let's hit it.
Let's do it. Pick up what you want to show.
All right, so, generally speaking here, what you got on your hands is a whole bunch of what I would call replica stuff. Some of it I would maybe call high-end replica, and some of it I would call vintage replica, and then some of it is kind of run-of-the-mill standard replica, which is a nice way of saying
fake,
fake, fugazi, what have you. But there's a couple gems in here that I would personally, if I was jumping into this pile of stuff and I wanted to pick out certain things, there's a few things that I would definitely, go for myself. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Again, some of this stuff is older, some of this stuff is newer, and some of the stuff is. Some of the stuff is just stuff that's been being bootlegged and knocked off for decades, okay?
Okay.
So we can go through some of that. I think what you have here is a mix of high-end replica, vintage replica, and a couple of things I would consider bootleg,
okay,
and a couple of things that I would believe to be authentic. Maybe just one thing, actually. I think we've got one thing on our hands as far as this little pile of China goes. There's a couple things.
What's the difference? Sure. Let me stop you really quick, because we always want to educate people.
And let's just show what we're talking about, right?
Well, they can watch the original video. We'll put the link in there. Okay. And I noticed some of the better pieces that I thought were better conveniently are not in the boxes anymore. I asked Casey about it.
I don't know.
She knows nothing about it, apparently. But you were talking about replicas, fake, and bootleg. What's the difference when we say those three terms in this hobby?
Right. So, first of all, fake and replica are two ways of saying the same thing, which is a non-authentic item made by a company, okay? And in this case, designer. In this case, we're talking about purses, backpacks, leather goods, belts a lot of times, when you're really getting into this stuff. The first question you have to ask yourself is, was this item ever actually made? Because, much like an old Star Wars figure that I would consider bootleg, some of these, Galaxy Force and these weird, Chewbacca's blue, Boba Fett's red, again, is that a fake Star Wars toy? No. It's somebody almost like fan art who bootlegged their own concept of these characters, okay? So again, maybe we'll go as far to call these designers their own set of artists who have created bootleg items. So you got a couple things here that weren't actual items made by Louis Vuitton, made by Gucci. You've got a couple things here that were someone who took their patterns and their concepts and their likenesses and created their own sort of designer fan art or homage, or again, much like people who were bootlegging alcohol, you know, where the term came from originally, kind of secretly making their own and passing it on.
Okay.
Again, and that's different than fake, aka replica, which is Gucci backpack just came out 2 months ago at the Gucci store in Las Vegas and, you know, Beverly Hills, and you have one that didn't come from the Gucci store in Las
It's
Vegas
just a
and Beverly
straight up
Hills.
knockout.
And it's exactly what it is. It's a replica or a fake or, you know, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same thing. And a bootleg, sure, it could fall under the umbrella of fake, but I believe that's kind of cooler because it's its own essence. You know, it's its own singular style.
So, and based on your TV show, guys, definitely check out the show on Netflix because he actually drops a lot of knowledge on there and on his YouTube channel and on your Instagram. I've been following you on Instagram. That's actually a big market for that bootleg stuff, right? That's guys that's like, well, they never made it, but I want it. Like, I saw you have a Louis Vuitton basketball in one of the episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Did they ever make a Louis Vuitton basketball? I know they made a soccer ball for the World Cup.
Sure, yeah. A lot of these fashion houses have made footballs, baseballs, basketballs. I think when you start talking about a situation like that, you're getting into custom.
Okay.
You know, so when somebody, you know, customizes their own basketball, customizes a Gucci Cadillac, customizes a Gucci bicycle, they're taking the materials and making their own. So that's the other sort of less talked about category that people get really confused about. That's not bootlegging either. So people are
I'm
like,
confused.
oh, yeah. So you know, making it your, you know, getting a roll of Gucci or cutting up an old large bag, a garment bag or something. That's, you're starting to get into custom work. Now, whether the material was originally authentic or whatever, that's a whole area of the custom. That's, you know, whatever, up to maybe the consumer.
And then what's the legality of us that actually selling customized or bootleg? So what is it?
Well, first of all, selling replica, you know, and bootleg and any of that is obviously illegal.
Okay.
So, you know, when people are like, you know, let's say I'm wearing a bootleg, like big baggy bootleg Gucci sweatshirt from the 80s or 90s and it has a big puff print on it, you know, it's not really appropriate for someone to be like, oh, walking around with all that fake stuff. Like, it's not really, it was never made. It's not a real item. But at the same time, it's also not illegal that I got something from 30 years ago. You know, again, so in reselling, you know, we have, you know, the ability to curate whatever we want. Just like a toy seller, again, is allowed to sell some of the bootleg,
A
weird,
customized Chewbacca, like you said.
yeah, or a bootleg one, or
Yeah.
you know, a non, you know, one that's it's a toy knockoff, so to speak. So I think for a reason, the knockoff stuff is frowned upon in this business and embraced a little bit more in the toy culture. Not for me personally, but again, if you're the one making this stuff, you're the one breaking the law. Again, a lot of this stuff's vintage. These are old. These might be replicas, but they're not. They weren't made recently.
Okay.
So if you're making a backpack that just came out,
Then
that
you
was
got the
just made
problem.
by Gucci, you're literally taking money out of their pocket, in their eyes at least. So that, you know, that's something that's actually where you're falling into an area of doing something illegal.
Okay.
So somebody selling me an old, you know, bootleg Gucci purse and me cutting it up and making lighters is not illegal. You've transferred through 3 different hands of reused materials. Anyone's allowed. You know, you could buy a Bentley from Bentley and chop it up with another Bentley.
That's a really good point, yeah.
And that's not against the law. So once you've purchased something and it's yours, you know, where you're breaking the law is using the likeness. And if you have a factory and you're making this, sure, of course
you got a
Gucci
problem,
has,
okay.
yeah, because nobody wants somebody making their exact product that's not them.
Especially when it comes out right away. All right, so we got a lot of cool knowledge. Let's take a look at some bags. So,
Okay.
why don't you pull out your favorite bag in here? Your favorite bootleg bag? Because I know you got really good
So
style.
there's not a lot of bootleg here, but there's a lot of fake, aka replica.
Okay.
In fact, most of it would fall into that category. If I was going to say bootleg, the one thing that would jump out to me, you know, when I walked up to the table, that word came into my head is these two.
Okay.
I don't believe that Louis Vuitton had an official sort of pink canvas line. At some point, yes, but definitely not with this sort of Britney Spears, Paris Hilton-esque, you know, set of, you know, trinkets attached. So again, this isn't necessarily just an exact fake of a real bag. This is sort of someone's cute interpretation of a Louis Vuitton concept. Again, using Louis Vuitton's lettering that belongs to them, but at the same time, maybe doing something different with it. You know, probably a woman who envisioned how cute this would be if it was a real life thing, pink snakeskin, you know, whatever. So to the best of my knowledge, this would be considered more of a bootleg.
Now, value-wise, and also, guys, let me insert something really quick. So when we do these appraisals and stuff, like, he just came to say hi. I'm like, let's shoot a video. So this is totally on the spot, and a lot of the stuff, like,
Poor guy, he's on vacation, and I made him film.
Yeah. And it's like 110 degrees in here right now, so because this area doesn't, because of the situation, everything is kind of tight. This is the only area we can film. But all this stuff that he says is always to the best of his knowledge. And like, I've been doing this business for 30 years, and like, we cannot know everything, so we always give you the information to the best of our knowledge. So price-wise, what do you think those two, like in your store, if you come in, what would those be priced? Now also, his store is a high-end store that's...
So we generally prefer to carry vintage, authentic. In fact, that's what we're really going for. We're a vintage store, and so we would have the vintage, authentic version. In fact, most of the older models, even if they're replicas here, they're the replica of of an actual vintage one that we would like to carry, and I'll show you some of those.
Okay.
But there's always exceptions. Really nice, basic logoed, you know, a basic logo product like this. This is just a classic that's so basic. It has that 80s and 90s look. There's exceptions, you know, and again, this isn't necessarily in my store per se, but it's definitely the kind of stuff we mess with. We might pop that off, put it on a hat. Okay. You know, again, some of this stuff turns into custom. But what am I gonna make, like a couch for a cat? You know what I mean? So like, but whereas something like this that I could just, you know, either recustom or whatever, you know, I'm gonna give somebody $15-20. Okay. And if I'm gonna resell something like that, you know, what are you gonna get, $100? To be fair, you know, I to my knowledge, there is a real, you know, vintage version of this, but this is pretty cool and it's usable. And hey, if it can go to a nice young gal or young man and they can pull it off and make it look cool and make it part of their outfit, then we support that. Generally speaking, though, we go after authentic vintage, you know, when it comes to my store. But in the world at large, a lot of this stuff is pretty cool for making customs and projects, and even for the right person who doesn't want to spend $1,900 on a bag or $9,000 on a bag. You know, find one that's nice, that makes your lady feel good. That's like, you know, whatever. A straightforward classic. Classics are classics. So there's a few classics we would mess with here, and there's one vintage authentic that I would probably mess with, and then the rest would end up being material for us and not being worth as much monetarily as authentic stuff.
And this is a good opportunity to plug your store, because you guys are always buying, right?
Generation Cool, Tucson, Arizona, buying 7 days a week, 80s and 90s vintage. Again, we consider ourselves top shelf, iconic pop culture based vintage. So we don't buy random stuff, whatever. We buy if everybody associates it with the 80s and 90s, then we buy it. You know,
that's
okay,
cool.
Pee Wee Herman, Mr. T, you know,
80s are hot right now.
Oshkosh Bagosh. I mean, 80s are always hot. That's why Generation Cool. That's the coolest generations. The 80s and the 90s. Like, we know what we're talking about.
We have the good stuff. So I got two bags that I didn't show you, and like, there was a lot of arguments on the internet. I had like 1 million people say these bags are real, 1 million people say these bags are fake. They're vintage Louis Vuitton bags, if they're real. So they got the Louis Vuitton down here. So
So we were looking at the red, smaller backpack version.
Okay, and then it's also...
And I determined the smaller backpack version to be what I would call a high-end vintage replica.
Okay.
I'd probably have to, you know, babysit these a little bit to give you a full Antiques Roadshow, you know, spiel, but at the same time, you're already seeing in some certain uneven cut maybe on some of the leather. Again, if they are, I could venture to say something on the spot, which would be, if they are replica, they're really good ones.
Okay.
And I would also say if they are real, then they're just, the material sometimes can lack because of how old they are. Okay. So something, it doesn't feel like a Gucci bag. And I'm like, yeah, but it's from the 70s, before Gucci, when it had really perfected always using luxury leathers, and sometimes they were using this old canvas. So I would have to spend a little time, you know, with these. But if they came from the, you know, again, I like to, you know, I would ask a lot of questions, and I'm an investigator, so a lot of times when people are selling me stuff, I would ask, did this come, if I already think the backpack's replica, and this is the matching handbag to it, I'm going to ask, did you get it from the same person?
Yes, all this came from the same person.
Okay.
Most likely replica.
Okay, so
let's do this. At the end of the video, Robbie's going to tell you if we think these are good or bad. So we're going to put these aside. We're going to pause it. We're going to investigate. Stay tuned till the end of the video. Right now, take the
And this
opportunity.
one too, there's a backpack.
He already said there's a review.
Yeah, that's
Oh, I'm
cool.
sorry.
Right
My
now,
bad.
click and like the video and also go to over his channel and subscribe. Okay, what else do you want to show us? What else? What point
Well,
that?
okay, so like I said, this is cool. I like the bootleg pink.
Okay.
This other stuff is pretty run-of-the-mill, replica. Here's something cool that I would probably consider bootleg, right, babe? I mean, this is an alternate color that Fendi wouldn't make.
Okay.
So I would call this bootleg just because it's weird and it looks more like something someone just designed on their Windows computer at home as opposed to in a fashion house at Fendi. So that's cool. If I wanted to cut it out and make pocket tees, or there's something of value just to see a Fendi pattern that's not an actual Fendi pattern. This is cool. This is a replica of a nice cool late 70s Gucci tote, or an oversized tote, something you take to school, to work, even as your everyday bag with all your stuff for getting through the day. This is sort of that everyday banger from the late 70s, early 80s. And this is a really high-end replica. These were, in Italy and Europe, and tourists would pay a good amount of money for these when they were traveling into Europe, but it was a lot less than what the real ones cost. And also, they're not that easy to find, the real ones. So when you get one like this, it can be cool because the real ones are expensive, a lot of times beat up, and hard to find. So you find something like this that looks close enough. What kind of makes it cooler is it's either way, it's an old one.
Okay.
And that's where that's where maybe.
No, I totally get you.
That's where maybe where my business does intersect is that it's so cool. It still has like this weird 70s Italy street, vibe, as opposed to this stuff that's just like you go to Shanghai. I went to Shanghai last summer. I saw a million of these things. They don't
excite
appease me. They don't excite me. So some of the older bootleg stuff can be cool and exciting. So this is like the kind of stuff I would use for a project, or possibly, this is the kind of stuff I just personally think is cool in general.
So guys, for like all the guys that it's like sports cards. If you see a Mickey Mantle that was like done in the 60s, some kind of off-brand serial card, that's still cool because it's a Mickey Mantle 60s card. It's not going to be worth as much as the real card. And there's a lot of argument, what is the real card? But this is still real. This is still really from the 70s and 80s. So that card is $200-300. Now, Topps might release a 2010 Mickey Mantle card, which doesn't excite us at all. It's brand new. So it's kind of for the guys to put in the same concept. It's that off-brand, but it still has that same age. It still has the same fantasy and the kind of satisfaction, because you just can't find it.
Sure. I think that's a really good way to put it.
So let's switch subjects, and then we're going to go back. He's going to show us the one bag he thinks is real, but we're going to change it up for a second. So you guys know he does a lot of vintage clothing. Okay, let me pull this over here because it's easier for the shot, I think.
Yep.
So I got a lot of this stuff. Next time you come, we'll show you more. Like this, we just pulled in the store. No, Ryan.
Cool. I think I'll keep that one.
Well, that sounds good. What do you think of this?
This is great. I was just telling one of my staff members the other day that Nolan Ryan wasn't maybe the most marketable guy, but he was a big deal when we were kids. But he didn't have a lot of merch made of him. Just, again, one of these, he's an old Texan, and he wasn't, as exciting as the Michael Jordans and the Bo Jacksons of the world. It's on a Salem, which is a classic sportswear up there with Champion and Chalk Line.
Stop it right now. He just gave you guys knowledge. He dropped knowledge on you because I didn't notice. If you say labels and they're marked Salem, you want to pay attention. And I guess that's one way to authenticate them too, right?
Absolutely.
And sorry for interrupting, but I always want to share that knowledge.
I saw it from far away earlier when your staff held it up, and I thought to myself, okay, what would I do if I wanted to see the tag? So the minute you brought it over here and I was able to see the tag, that's like I say to my staff, you can spot a fake from a mile away, and you can spot something good from a mile away, because all the information is there.
Okay.
Knowledge is power.
No, and I tell it all the time, guys.
Knowledge is power.
So one thing that we always talk about our channel is the 99/1 rule. If 99% of the video or article you're reading doesn't teach you anything, if you just get that 1% out, it's a win. On eBay, what would you guess this would go for on eBay?
I have a Nolan Ryan big head cartoon tee in my store right now that we're selling for $80.
Okay.
It's new, so this one being a little used, it's still a cool Nolan Ryan, it's a really cool image because it's him flying through the months with his no hitters and his strikeout counts, showing you what a good year he had in his Cy Young year. So it's, I would say, between 40 and 60. You know, and that's a good thing to know in vintage. And in a lot of this stuff is have a zone, have a bubble. You don't have to be like, am I gonna get 35? You know, just know that to the right person it's 60, and that could be an eBay buyer, that can be your website buyer, that can be an Instagram buyer, whatever. It could be a YouTube buyer, but there could be, you know, somebody who just wants, you know, it could move fast at 40, buy it now, free shipping. You know, I sell a lot of toys for my personal collection on eBay, and I tend to do the free shipping, buy it now. And I tend to go with something lower, and I just get my money fast. So again, in my store, 60. On eBay, if you want to move it fast, something more like 40.
Okay. So, and just guys, so if you find 10 shirts like this, somebody was going to the Rangers games at that time period, that's the difference between getting $10 on a swap meet or $400 selling online. Now I'm going to show you guys something that's a big heart to mine. In the 80s and 90s, I was a huge NBA fan, actually through the 2000s, till I had a kid, then I was working every day. So I'm going to pass these to you. But these are all champion, I believe. Oh, no, actually, these are not the champion ones.
Yeah, so these are, so this is classic 90s, what you would call just sportswear. And they're kind of, let's say, the poor man's version of a starter.
Okay.
So the starter does these big, giant block letters arched, and they're called starter arch. And those hats and shirts. And you might see a lot of athletic and sportswear utilizing the block lettered arch, quote unquote. So, you know, at the same time, while they might be the poor man's version, they're classics because it's just the simple logo, the arches, what you call a plain logo. Here, you know, you got more of what you would call a crest with an arch over it. This is Signal, and brands like Artex and Signal were just used by outside license, you know, again, which here Artex licensed this. So Artex themselves bought the New York Knicks license and NBA license. I'm sure. Yep. So Saturday's Hero was a company that got the license, printed it, and then they used this blank.
Okay.
So there you can tell it's a little bit of a poor man's version of a certain brand because they had to outsource to a different sweatshirt company. But whereas Starter or Salem would have their own tag. But it's cool. Again, this is almost these are like almost cooler because they had like the reins a little bit less pulled in, and they were able to do, you know, bigger and more vibrant stuff. So, you know, again, classic 90s
super cool stuff. That's when I grew up. Now, when did people find boxes of this stuff? Because there's still boxes of this stuff out there. I mean, I bought in one storage lock, and people won't believe it. I probably got 100 of these, and we got a lot of duplicates. But what's the price of these? What can you expect on eBay, roughly?
$80.
$80. That's nice. $8,000. It's literally 2 boxes. And when I tell you guys to get your knowledge and learn and do your research all the time, 2 boxes in a swap meet that you might maybe throw out for $40-$50, if you take the time and do it nice and maybe even clean and present and have the knowledge that Robbie has, you can turn that money into $8,000. And subscribe to this channel because he drops a lot of knowledge. And if you haven't seen the Netflix show, I mean, I learned a lot of it. Like, I picked up something new every show, and I've been doing this business for 30 years. Now I'm going to show you something else. I don't know if you're going to get excited about this. Let me pull this over here really quick. We bought Lamar Odom's and Khloe Kardashian's locker, and I know all this stuff is real. I don't know if this excites you. Just throwing Louis Vuitton here. But this is real Louis scarves.
Oh, yeah. And these are from all their famous ski trips to Colorado.
Is that what it is?
Oh, yeah, you go back and watch some of the old episodes. They taken all these ski trips to Vail, and they were rocking these super heavy.
Nice. I think this is Gucci, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
I'll put
a cool beanie. Definitely hasn't really, I would say, probably not been worn.
Yeah, a lot of this. So I got about 200 pairs of shoes from him, including NBA game-worn stuff. I got prototype stuff, player-only editions.
Yeah, PEs.
I got a lot of PEs.
PEs and sneakers are where it's at.
I got Kobe Bryant PEs for him. Cool. I don't know, is this Louis or Neiman Marcus?
Yeah.
So does this stuff excite you, or is this too new where it's like, yeah, it's cool, but...
This isn't my cup of tea or my lane, so to speak. But, you know, stuff like the Gucci beanie we mess with because it's a classic form. You know what I mean? And it's definitely not as recent. This is probably early 2000, mid-2000 Gucci. Okay. Late Tom Ford era Gucci, where they were really embracing the stripes and embracing all, like, the simplicity of some of their 70s, you know, tennis and luxury, you know, sort of leisure style design. lines. So anyway, the fact that this is referencing older Gucci, I appreciate. I like that this Louis Vuitton has a cool little like Louis Vuitton flower, motif. Generally speaking, this isn't the kind of stuff that we buy, but this is the kind of stuff people should be looking to flip. Okay. Because again, if I obtain this in my personal life, I would have no problem flipping this stuff.
Because keeping it all.
There's perfect.
Not really. I don't make any money.
Not out here. Not out here. There are people who live in cold weather areas that still want to have nice, classy stuff. So again, in my store, we get rid of the jackets and the beanies and the stuff. We're in the desert. We don't
Same
need
here,
it.
yeah.
So again, we pick it up a lot though, because a lot of our customers are just getting rid of winter stuff that they never wore. Okay. So I think there's a lot of value in here, and I think this is a good flip. Let's throw the celebrity status out. Okay. Picking up high-end designer for the right price, even modern and recent, is a great way to make money.
What do you think this box is, just by quick look? I know we didn't really break it down. But
a couple thousand?
That's what I'm thinking too, a couple thousand. So we're
I
on the
would
same
say
page.
for sure.
So now we have, okay, so why don't you show us the bag that you think is real?
Okay, cool.
What is this right here?
I think we need a drum roll.
So now, before we're going to give them a Bargain Hunter shirts, since he likes classy shirts. Now, I can tell you this is Met 2015s when this came out. This is a brand new edition. You cannot buy it with the We Pay Cash. So the ones that were in the market, only at the front.
Okay, sick.
So this is for you.
We pay cash, homie. That is my motto for my life.
We pay cash, yes.
All right, I'm down.
All right, so what do you think is the real bag here that got you excited?
So I think that there was a bag, maybe accident. It's that baby blue one right there.
This one?
Yes, sir. I think this one is either what we would call a very high-end replica, or sort of a low-end real one that's older. It's one of the two, which actually both sort of might meet each other in the same value range. I actually believe this one to be pretty authentic. It's real leather, no fraying on the sides. These little plastic fibers coming off the sides. The fact that I can kind of feel that they used real leather is great. I mean, this little Gucci on the buckle, dead giveaway that somebody took the time to do a crudely gold-plated miniature Gucci logo on this one buckle that slides. More mini Gucci. Like, you look at this whole table of stuff, none of the stuff has mini prints and mini, what you would call signatures when things are imprinted. So the fact that there's so many mini signatures, and I consulted with my girlfriend, who's also a pretty big expert on this stuff, and she really pointed to the fact that there was a lot of mini signatures. She also pointed out the fact that this is a really nice material on the inside. You're not looking at like all this weird vinyl and weird. Everything in here either has pleather or like a weird vinyl, or whereas this is like you're actually talking about a really soft animal skin here. The serial number looks a lot more legit. Everything is straight. The gold stuff is straight. They were a lot more crude, and they didn't used to actually emboss it into the letter physically back then, but. Somebody might jump in the comments and say, hey, yeah, no way, and that's fine. It could be a bootleg, it could be what we would call a replica, but at the same time, with all these little details,
you think it's real?
I'm thinking that it's just an older, real one.
What do you think value? Why do you think that would not what you pay, but what retail would be on this?
$250, $300.
$250, $300.
Yeah, because it's in good condition and it is what it is. And then let's just say it's a high-end replica. It's probably still $150, $180 purse. Awesome. So you're not far off. It's not a $5 to $500 jump. Either way, either way, somebody wants to wear this and look cool and have like a nice 70s Gucci piece. So at the very least, it's a 70s really, really, really good replica. Cool, but I think out of all of these, and the fact that none of these are from the era of this, makes me think that somebody, passed this on into this collection at some point, who actually had themselves like a nice real older one.
It could very well be. Okay, guys, so we're going to go back to the video now. Robbie's going to check out the 2 Louis Vuitton bags. We'll be right back. While he does that, I'm going to do something. So Tatiana's been working her butt off lately with us, and she's been doing really good. So guess what?
Did you hear me?
She said,
So that's what I wanted.
So guess who's getting a real Gucci bag? Tatiana. That's the one you wanted? Well, say thank you, Robbie.
Good choice.
We know it's real. That's a vintage
choice.
one. That's hard to get. Any of you girlfriends that want to go buy one, you just cannot go buy them. They're hard to find. So,
Good choice.
We'll be right back. Make sure like the video. Go subscribe to Cool World, right?
Generation Cool.
God, I'm so wrong. And messing up Generation
Cool World is a very good movie, though. Cool World is an excellent cartoon.
I'm the worst promoter, so hire me if you want to, but check out Generation Cool on YouTube. I'm going to put the links in. We're going to check out those 2 bags. We'll be right back and tell you if they're
Okay,
real.
guys, so Tatiana just came up to me. She was like actually crying. She wanted that bag really bad. And when Robbie was talking about that's the real one, she's like, oh, no, that's the one I wanted. Because she doesn't really care that much about real or fake. You know, she's 13 years old. But she just came. She's super happy because you guys show her so much love and you show so much love to the channel. That's why she got it. Plus, she's my daughter. But now, the most important thing, before we're going to say this, I want to say thank you to Robbie again for coming out, dropping all kinds of knowledge. I hope you guys learned something. Look for that vintage stuff because it's a lot of money. If you want to learn more, just go on eBay, do research. Check out a store in the Phoenix area. But here, we want to know, are they real or not?
These are definitely what you would call high-end replicas.
No, why?
I mean,
Why would you
because
say
they
that?
always are. You know what they say, right? And my dad taught me this a long time ago. If it's too good to be true, it isn't.
Damn.
You know what I mean? You know, the embossment is a little lighter than what I've seen on the authentic ones.
Okay.
These are things that just jump out to me immediately. As I pointed out before, some of the inconsistencies on the leather. Again, any type of bad cutting, bad dyeing, frays, you know, these high-end companies don't usually tend to let that slip, and I don't think that's from use. That looks like a factory mistake.
Okay.
These bigger companies, even they don't have outlets where they sell like the mistakes as much. But again, when someone uses real leather and you know and decent materials, you end up with a product like this that's, you know, pretty close. Okay. But again, upon close review, you start noticing little things, and sometimes they are little things. You know, we've got here we go. Here's some inconsistency. You know, if you just start finding little tiny mistakes, no matter how old they are, there are certain things that come off as machine mistakes. Okay, so there's a man-made mistake or a scuff. Of course, somebody could have owned it for 20 years and gotten a scuff, but a machine-made mistake,
That's
like a nipple or a wonky line.
You know what? That's it. I can't take this anymore. Thank you for watching, guys. Thank you for Robbie. I'm out of here.